We'll have to have a vote.
I see we're recording.
That's just wallpaper, isn't it, Ken?
All right, ready when you guys are.
Okay, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Mr. Secretary, whoever you are, please call the roll.
Ludwig,
Here.
Robinson,
Here,
Delvecchio,
Here,
Goodman,
Here.
Whitaker,
Yeah.
Page,
Here,
Dreyer. Dreyer is not here tonight.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second it.
I'll second Jerry.
Thank you, Wayne. All in favor?
Aye.
all right,
Okay, thank you all. You all have a chance to look at the minutes from February 24th? Hello?
Hello.
Anyone,
A1.
any additions or corrections?
did not.
I've got a couple on page 15.
Okay,
Amanda's not here. Amanda's always the one that spots
I
all
know, I know.
the corrections. On page 15, line 15, the name Mary Frances is in there, and I don't know what that means. I don't recall speaking about a Mary Frances. And
I
then
saw that, I don't either.
no. Line 19, it says 5th century ranch houses, and I think they need mid-century ranch houses.
Yes.
So those are my two.
I only have one. It's on page 33, line 18. I think it's supposed to say, and I said it, so I may have a clue. I think it's supposed to say to death. Let's not beat this to death rather than let's not
Yes.
beat this together. Any other additions or corrections?
Mhm.
May I have a motion to approve as corrected?
John Page, I'll make that motion.
Thanks, John. Second, please.
I will.
Thanks, David. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Minutes stand approved as corrected. Was this meeting duly advertised?
This meeting was duly advertised in the Daily Record of March 17th, 2022.
Thank you. That meeting is duly advertised will now be held. First item, we have no communications, no designation of landmarks, no certificates of appropriateness, no hardship applications. Public hearings are closed. New business. First item, properties to be surveyed and updated. Jeff and Ramsey, do you want to lead us off?
Yes, I can pull that up. I mean, this is a list that we had from that we had before, and Mary Jo picked out a house that she was thinking would be a good one to look towards surveying.
That was 245 Thackeray Road.
Correct. Yep, one of the Don Hershey houses.
Right.
I've also looked at 321 Council Rock Avenue. I'm still working on that.
Okay.
Okay. And also, since that time, Mary and Joe and I have been talking about one of the Boyd houses. And Mary Jo, would you just fill us in a little bit on that one?
That's 321 Council Rock Avenue. That's Jules Friedman's house. It was built for the Friedmans in 1953. Thomas Boyd is on the permit for the house. They bought the land in 1952. Jules Friedman was the operator of Jay's Baby Furniture on State Street in Rochester for many, many years. He took over from his father, Abraham Friedman, in the late 1940s. Yeah, late 1940s. After his father died, his father had run a large furniture store in that area. And but Jay or Jules, who was, I guess, nicknamed Jay, decided to concentrate on baby furniture. And it was a very popular store. I remember it. It lasted probably through the 1980s.
Okay, and this is important, I think. Cynthia Hauk sent around an article about Boyd. And of course, he was a Black architect of no small renown.
Right.
And the fact that he designed a house, or I don't know, Mary Jo, I think there were a couple that he did.
We had 2 Boyd houses on the list. And can't tell where's my Council Rock list. There it is. And there it is.
Oh, 240 Thackeray.
240 Thackeray and 321 Council Rock. And yeah. And then the rest were the Don Hershey houses. Mhm.
And I asked Mary Jo to
There it is.
sort of pick one that sort of would rise above the other as far as perhaps who the owners were. I think both are in quite great condition. In fact, Chris Brandt sent around a thing that shows the interior photographed as well as the exterior, and it's amazing how little has changed. And I believe it's 321.
Yeah, 321 interior is really nice for the period.
Right. So I think one of these certainly deserves a survey and may rise above the Hershey house as far as desirability for designation. But I think it certainly deserves a survey. Any other comments about, I mean, I guess that's why we're here, is to maybe select a house to be surveyed for the this calendar year.
1948. 1954.
Well,
I like the idea of surveying this place.
So the 245 Thackeray that we have some more information on is, got a good social history, and it's a nice house. I like 211 Thackeray of the Hershey ones personally, but
Okay.
don't know anything about the social part of it. But it's it's a more unusual house, maybe in a negative way, but I liked it.
Well, John, just driving down Council Rock and Thackeray and around the corner on Esplanade, I mean, it's amazing that
Right.
this little section has some wonderful, wonderful houses on it.
Yeah.
Make a great district.
Yes, it would. Yes, it would.
Well,
So So Jerry, we're gonna try to make some decision on whether we ask for 2 things, or whether we surveys, or whether we ask for 1 survey and hold in honor of our leaders.
Well, John, I think we should definitely have a survey. I would love to see 2, but then that leaves us a little short in case we needed to do something at the end of the year. But Ramsey knows the politics. How?
No, actually, I think our budget has been modified upwards
Mhm.
so that we could actually perform 2 full surveys and still have money left over at the end of the year to do, if you will, an emergency survey, if that's what we want to call it.
Well,
So, Jeff, I don't know if you have information on the budget particularly.
These are, I think my screen's showing that the last that I knew, we had a budget that was enough for 2 full surveys and an update, or 1 survey and 4 updates.
Yeah, I think the idea is to go through the properties, determine which properties we want surveys for. And then we should also go through our properties that we have surveyed that's on the list but not designated to see if any of them should be updated. And you need to start a list, kind of like what we've had in the past, like what I used to call the on deck circle, where we have, where we list them, because what you can do, and which we've done in the past, we do one now, we save one for later, we prioritize, and then you could also do an update, but that's kind of up to you guys. One of the things is, before these new properties can be done, a request would need to be made to the town board, through the town board, to extend the contract for the consulting services necessary to perform the surveys or the update.
Well, I would like to suggest, I'd sort of follow John's thoughts here. I think I would like to have the Hershey house done, and I'd also like to have the Boyd house done. And I think that's probably more important than doing updates at this stage.
That would be 321 Council Rock.
321 Council Rock and
245 Thackeray.
well, 321 Council Rock and 245 Thackeray. No.
Yes.
That's the one that we have that Mary
okay,
Jo's
yeah,
put the
yep,
information together for.
Yep.
So can am I right that we have an on-deck survey that we'll be talking about tonight?
Yes, it's the
Yes.
one on Verena Drive.
Right. So we already have one, and then we're going to add either one or 2 more that we can follow up on for the next several months. Am I?
Right. Well,
Yeah, we ordered under our last year's contract some updates, and a survey, Verena being one of them.
Yeah.
These are to use the funds for 2022.
Right.
Is that, and I'm just trying to get you guys to have your list and, think about what ones you want to do now, and, and how you want to proceed with the upcoming year.
Last year, there was also some discussion about 340 Avalon and 241 Highland Avenue. 240 or 140 Avalon is the James Johnson house. 1041 is the Storybook house on Highland Avenue.
right. Boy, that's tough. I guess we have some Johnsons, but we don't have any Boyds. And Thackeray has already had some research done on it by you.
Mhm.
I don't know, it's up to the commission, but I would vote for the Hershey house, because we're lacking in mid-century modern, for sure. And before Wonder Windows gets around to it, nice to have these 2 surveyed, I think. But I'll bow to the rest of the commission. Thoughts, folks?
I'm good with that.
Thanks, John. Anyone else?
Jerry, I think I'm very much supportive of the Boyd at 321, and and certainly I support the 245 Thackeray as well. I think it'd be interesting to have the survey of Boyd, and particularly both being mid-century. I think it's a good direction to go in.
Great. Justin, I heard you say something. I'm not quite sure whether that was,
My
you agreed or
apologies.
not.
Yeah, my dog wants to go outside and meet the neighbor dog, but he's got to behave himself here.
All right.
I definitely would love to see a survey on 321 Council Rock. And yeah, Jerry, generally, I'm aligned with what you're calling out. So looking forward to it if we could do it.
Great. Well, any other thoughts? Folks? Well,
I
why
just
don't we
want
take-
to, Jerry, I just want to go back and touch on something Ramsey mentioned. Jeff or Ramsey, can you tell us when the contract with Barrow currently expires? Or has it already expired?
No, we had a contract for 21 that has the right to extend, that has to go back to the town board to seek that permission. But it is in the contract with them too, that we can request an extension.
Okay.
And it was in
what
the
you're-
resolution.
What you're telling me is that the contract has expired as of January 1st, 2022, although we have the right to renew that contract.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
And,
I don't know. I haven't looked at the term of the contract. Maybe I made it for 2 years. I don't know.
okay.
Is there a
We need to-
resolution?
I haven't looked at it.
Ready?
I know I have to do something with the contract and I have to.
Don't we have rollover funds from that?
No,
No?
we don't roll funds over from one year to the next. We have to encumber them in the year that they're budgeted for, or else they drop into the general fund and we lose access.
Okay.
But let me just talk about the contract. So why don't we just either get a sense of the board or have a vote of the board as you wish, Jerry, that directs the secretary of the board to research the status of the contract with Barrow, and if it needs renewing, to write a letter to the town board to request that the town board renew that agreement. Let's
thank-
just get that done so that piece is in motion, so we don't have to wait another month for that to happen.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Ken, may I have do you want a motion to that effect?
I think, sure, why not? Go ahead and
Doesn't hurt.
Okay, may I have
Go
someone
ahead, Jeff.
put forth the motion to, as Ken said, send this, well, Ken, your words.
The
are better.
motion would be to direct the secretary of the commission to research the status of the Barrow contract. And if it is in need of renewal, then to write a letter to the town board to request that the town board renew the contract with Barrow for performing cultural surveys.
Thanks, Ken. May I have someone put forth that motion, please?
Jerry, this is Wayne. I would put forth that motion.
Thank you,
I
Wayne.
second Justin.
Thanks, Justin. You want to call the roll, Jeff?
Yep. Ludwig,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes,
Bill Vecchio,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
Whitaker,
Yes,
Page.
I feel like I should probably abstain.
Okay.
Okay,
All right. Motion passes.
thank you. Now, do you also want to, I think we should probably go ahead and vote on potential properties, if that's appropriate.
I'm sorry, what was that?
I was,
Sure.
want to go ahead and nominate a couple of properties to be surveyed, or do you want to wait until the
No, that's okay.
board?
No, you can continue on that discussion, Jerry.
Okay, I would suggest that 321 Council Rock Avenue be on the list for properties to be surveyed. If someone would like to put forth that motion, I would appreciate it.
I'll put forth that motion, John Page.
Thanks,
Thanks,
John. May I have
I'll
a
second
second?
it, Whitaker.
Second, David?
Yes,
Jeff?
Yep. Ludwig,
Yes.
Robinson. Delvecchio,
Yes,
Goodman,
Yes,
Whitaker,
yes,
Page.
Yes,
Motion passes.
Okay, thank you. Now, I think it does make sense to go ahead and request 2 surveys. We have a choice of Thackeray. I think Thackeray's very popular, and also we have a thought possibility for the Jim Johnson House. Any thoughts on those?
I'd go for Thackeray.
I concur, but anyone else like to voice an opposition or an alternative?
So I told Ramsey that I was going to slowly be trying to push boards in the direction of complying more with Robert's Rules of Order. So what I would suggest is that somebody make a motion, somebody second that motion, and then, and only then, will the board be able to discuss the motion, the pros and cons of surveying whatever house is moved to be surveyed.
Yes, we used to do that. I will hear
This
you,
is-
I hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, so this is John Page. I will move that we add 245 Thackeray Road to the list of to be surveyed. When
Thank
we
you,
I will
John.
second.
Okay.
Thank you,
Whitaker,
David.
second. Thank you.
Any discussion?
No.
Okay, Jeff, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Ludwig,
Yes.
Robinson.
You
Robinson,
missed it.
Yes, I said yes.
okay, I didn't hear you, thank you. Delvecchio,
yes,
Goodman,
yes,
Whitaker,
Yes,
Page.
Yes,
Motion passes.
Thank you. Any other new business?
I just have one question. Do we want to phase those surveys? First do 321 Council Rock and then do Hershey a little later in the year?
Well, what's your, I mean, you brought it up. Do you think that's what we should do?
Well, the reason being, we usually try to do 2 a year, but we do 1 in the beginning and hold in case there's an emergency or something becomes threatened that we didn't know about.
Okay.
We would have funds available.
So,
And as we get into the fall, if the funds are still there, then we can pick off at 245 Thackeray. Because we have funds for 2 surveys and 1 update.
but also if there was an emergency towards the end of the year, we could certainly use our excess funds plus possibly apply for an emergency infusion to do a survey, as was mentioned earlier.
That would need town board
Oh, I understand.
approval for budget amendment.
Well, it's a tough call.
The reason being, those things just don't happen quickly when, so that's more of the issue. It's not necessarily that the town board would say, hey, no, we're not going to help you with your emergency. It's how quickly we can respond if an emergency comes up.
Well, it's tough because these 2 houses are pristine examples, and we just assume not anything, replacement by Anderson shows up one day. But on the other hand, I hear your point.
so I have a question, and that is, if we've identified an interest in a property, but we haven't authorized the consultant to proceed with the research yet. Does that give it does that tag it? Ramsey, Jeff?
What was that? What was that question, John? I didn't quite follow it.
Okay, so we have now identified, the board has identified these two properties as properties of interest,
Yes.
right? We've said we'd like them to be on the list to be surveyed this year. Now we're talking about timing. Does the fact that we have them listed in the minutes as properties of interest,
Interest.
does that already put a flag on them?
No.
Similar to we had?
Well, no.
Okay,
I mean, first of all, understand that all properties have a flag on them in the sense that if there is an entire, if there is a demolition of a property of more than 50%, it's coming before this board, no matter what.
Right.
Secondarily, if you have added a property to the list of properties that have been surveyed but not yet designated, that puts a little bit more protection on that property, and any kind of demolition of I can't remember. I can't quote the code on that, Ramsey, but it gives it more of a protection. Saying that you're interested in surveying a property provides no more protection than any other property in town. And a property isn't truly protected until you actually start the designation process.
okay,
And asking for a survey on a property does not start the designation.
okay, good clarification. I'm not too worried about it one way or another, but I was interested in that clarification.
Yep. So, I mean, I hear what Ramsey says. I would say that there is also the possibility of in an emergency situation, if you learned of a property that was threatened that was not on a list anywhere and had not been surveyed, you still could initiate the designation process even though a survey has not yet been completed. And you could order the survey in the midst of the designation process.
There you go.
Yep. Typically not the way we do business, but that would put the brakes on somebody going forward. Certainly not the way we proceed normally, because it is not as objectively protected if somebody challenged that kind of action in court. And we wouldn't want to take any kind of final action, certainly without a survey, because we always want to have a good record. But, and this is just me talking, we have an extraordinarily talented historian who would be able to come up with proper justification, even in the absence of a formal survey, that I believe would withstand a challenge in court, such that we could take action in an emergency situation, even without a survey being done. That's my thought on the subject.
I like that thought.
100% agree.
So with that in mind, shall we try to coordinate the two surveys relatively soon?
Yes.
Okay,
Well, I think that the question that Ramsey asked, and that is, we going to ask for them to be done at the same time, or we're going to ask for them to be done sequentially and suggest a time frame?
well, John, since your office will be doing the surveys, what's your thought on that?
From the person who's doing the surveyor standpoint, it's good not to have both of them do at the same time, but there's some value to doing research at the same time. But it's not a big, it's not a big deal. So in other words, the office would probably not be eager to have it requested that the surveys both be done and delivered at the same time, quickly, if you will, or expeditiously. They would prefer to focus on one and do the second one. And so I think that's actually a perfectly fine thing to do, and to give them probably a minimum of a month per survey to go after it. And if you want to say that if the money is available, that you'd like them to start in April with a deliverable by the middle of May or something like that, and then something later than that tends to move us closer to the end of the year, I think that's fine too.
Don, is there any cost saving if we do both at once?
No,
Okay,
Well, I would suggest we, if the commission is agreeable, that we start one as soon as we hear the town board's approval of the funds, and the other one to follow as soon as possible.
sounds good to me.
Do we need a motion on that?
I don't think so.
Ken?
I think Ramsey's saying no.
No, I'm saying no as well.
Okay,
It's no, and you did authorize to check the status of the contract and renew the agreement if necessary. And then with that, I can certainly have enough information to help Jeff get through that process and
very
get
good.
that rolling.
So we're all set then.
Yes.
Very good. Any other new business? Okay, old business. 42 Varina Drive. You saw the recent addition to that survey that Mary Jo sent around. In fact, that the family that bought Varina Drive was not the first African-American family to buy a house in Brighton. Given that, do we proceed with designation, or do we consider perhaps another alternative, such as a marker?
Oh, I think the point of the survey, as I read it, was that being the first was not an important aspect of the value of the property, and that the social history of the property had a lot going for it. Other than that, if I read the additional information that Mary Jo provided, it sounds like they could. And again, I don't think this is important per se to the designation process, but that they may well be the first owners of a house that remains in Brighton.
Okay,
Since the state used to allow municipalities to raid other municipalities.
Yes.
okay,
I emailed Chris about this and asked him about the statement in quotation marks that Peter and Yvonne Tolliver were the first Black homeowners in Brighton. And it was more of a tongue-in-cheek kind of thing, that we're always looking for the first or the biggest or the oldest. And it was more, he put that phrase in quotation marks for that reason. It was not meant, I don't think, to stand pat as the final say on the matter.
but I think before the survey is presented, I think that probably should come out, because even though it's in quotes, it infers that they were, and I think.
I think the way, I think the way it's written, that it doesn't do that. I mean, we can certainly ask that if you really think that's necessary. We've got the other document that we can put into the record that clarifies that also.
Well, there's certainly ample evidence and interesting information on whether they were or not. So the fact that they had to, it was not just they didn't walk up and buy the house. There was quite a bit of opposition to it.
Right, right.
So I think that's important, and how it was handled is important. But I
Right.
do feel that I'm a little uncomfortable about being the first, whether it's in quotes or not in quotes. So
I guess
Jeff,
my,
Could you
my-
put that document up on the screen, please?
yeah, so but I think it's a little more than in quotes, but so I appreciate your concern. My concern is that I don't want to delay starting the process.
Mhm.
We've already delayed it a month, and so I'd be pushing for that, but we'll take a vote on it.
Next page.
well,
Fifth
John,
page.
it's not like,
There it is.
it's not like they're going to come and install vinyl windows in the house. That's already been done. So
No, I always have a desire to try to, do this kind of work as consistently as we can. And we often find ourselves circumstantially, slowed down from getting more properties designated because of the ability for people to ask for a delay and so on. So that's all. That's my,
well, I understand, but it's my feeling that we should have our ducks in a row as completely as possible before we begin
So
the process.
so let's read that then. So Peter and Yvonne Tolliver were more than just the first Black homeowners in the town of Brighton in the quotes there. So he's not, see, I actually, when I read that as that the discussion about whether they were first or not was unimportant. So, different people would certainly read that different ways. So I felt from the beginning that it wasn't a big deal.
What if we said more than just early Black homeowners?
Yeah, well, there's, if we
something.
want it to be modified and if we want to push it off, it's easy to change it. Or to put a comment down at the bottom about it after,
Well, I'll leave it to the commission, but I don't like to see the first in quotes if they're not the first.
Can I ask a question? What is the difficulty of getting the narrative description changed slightly? How would that happen? If we just wanted to change that phrase slightly?
Mary Jo, have you talked to Chris? We have a call into him to talk with him about that after he read your memo, to see if he wanted to have a clarification or a citation.
Mary Jo, you're muted.
It just say one of the first.
I did email him after the meeting and discussed this with him, and he got back to me about why he had put that first Black in. And I did not reply after that. So it was just a one back and forth conversation.
And
But
I tried to,
Mary Jo, has he seen your memo about them definitely not being the first?
I
Yes.
did not send that to Chris. I
he
just,
has seen it.
yeah, good. Okay, good.
I did reach out to him today and was going to try to get his thoughts on either editing that or adding some sort of citation, but he was off today. So I left him a message, and that's something I can circle back with him.
So if I could chime in here, well, let's just back up a little bit. The reason why, this is going to sound an awful lot like something I just said a couple minutes ago. The reason why we get surveys is to provide evidentiary foundation for decisions that the board ultimately is going to be making. Often we have surveys that say a whole lot of things, and not all of those things in the survey are things that this board relies upon in its findings when it designates a property. So the important thing, the important action will be if this property is in fact designated by the commission, writing findings that make it clear that this board did not rely upon the fact that Peter and Yvonne Tolliver were the first Black homeowners in the town of Brighton. Perhaps we don't even mention that in the determination and findings to designate this property, but articulate the true reasons why this board, if that is what this board decides, would designate this property and why it meets the criteria of the code. That's what's important. So I don't want us to lose focus on wordsmithing this too much. Having said that, I agree, it doesn't seem like it would be a big deal for Chris to simply issue an amendment or an addendum to the report that says, here's why I used the first in quotes, and explain that, if the board would feel more comfortable. But I'm telling you, I don't think it's necessary, because what's necessary is for you to articulate the findings that you rely upon designation. And I'm very certain that the resolution that you are going to be offered, if it comes to designating this property, will not say we're designating this property because Peter and Yvonne Tolliver were the first Black homeowners in the town of Brighton. I'm sure it will not say that.
Thanks, Ken. Sorry, I'm just probably being more of a pain here than necessary, but if I see something that is in a survey that is not correct, whether it's in quotes or not, I think it's appropriate that be revised before the survey is sent to the homeowners and before the commission votes on it. That's all. And I don't think that's a major deal to take out perhaps first with early and replace it with early or something like that.
I agree with Jerry.
Thank you.
Ken, is there a way to craft a resolution that would allow a modification to be made and for this to be sent out so that we don't lose another month?
I believe that the board could direct the secretary to send the letter initiating the designation process after the secretary receives a revised letter from Barrow Associates relative to this particular sentence.
Is it a revised report or is it a revised letter? What do you want?
I hope you're not asking me, Ramsey.
I would
I was.
prefer, it doesn't take a lot of effort to change one sentence in a report. So I would say we have the revised report and proceed. And that could happen before our next meeting.
As I said earlier, you can simply say one of the first. It's just add one word.
Right? Yeah.
Yes, one of the first.
All right, it's 2 words.
Well, yes.
Yeah. Or early, whatever. But
Whatever. But I do think it would be fine for the board, if it so chooses, to pass a motion tonight directing the secretary to send a letter to the homeowners to initiate the designation process upon receipt from Chris Brandt of a revised report relative to this one sentence. I think
Great.
we can do that.
okay. Makes
If
sense. to
somebody
me.
wants to make that motion.
May
I'm sorry, Jerry, I just a quick question. I'm not, certainly I'm not opposed to designating this property. I just have a question about in certain circumstances where properties in the town are designated that have sort of witnessed modifications through the years, like the vinyl windows or vinyl siding or whatnot. How historically has the commission, I'm asking out of ignorance, historically, how has the commission dealt with properties that in the future appear before the commission requesting changes when there's no really historic fabric or historic design in the first place. So for instance, if this house at 42, let's say in 5 years, the homeowners appear before us and they are asking to replace their windows. Well, they already have replacement windows now. So I guess I'm just thinking from the standpoint, typically how, in preservation circles, it's, there's a certain level of architectural integrity that we're trying to preserve. And so therefore people come for us and say, hey, I want to rip out my old windows and put vinyl in, and we say no. In this case, how does that work if there's modifications already in place? I'm just asking out of curiosity.
Well, I don't think we've really had that situation, but if we're going to be designating this primarily on social, I think the social aspect is going to be the strong aspect of this. I think that we would look at, if an addition was put on, if it was complementary to the basic building, and I think, let's say they wanted to replace their windows, but they wanted to replace them with a larger window, I think we would say no to that. If they wanted to put a window that was smaller than the window that was in there and had trim that made it look like it was not well thought out, I think we would say no to that. But I don't think that, we would think differently about a house that had replacement windows in it. I think, whatever character defining aspect to the house that remains, that would make it, more, make it able to be understood by somebody who had seen it in the past, to know that it was the same building, even if it had different windows in it, but the windows were in the same openings as before, and so on and so forth. But that's how I would think about it.
I think John hit the nail on the head, really, by talking about the characters. So remember, the process under the code would be that the homeowner would come post designation and ask for a certificate of appropriateness. And the decision the board would be making is the new work consistent with the historic character, you use that word, John, of the building or the house? Well, the historic character of this Verena property is having to do with the social history. And so any physical change to the building, short of demolition, would be presumably consistent with the historic character, because you're not going to change the historic character of its social value by changing physical architectural features of the house. So I think you do, and we've done this in the past. We've looked back at the reasons for, or the motion or the findings for designation, in determining whether a particular piece of work should or should not get a certificate of appropriateness based on what was determined to be the important historic characteristics of a property when it was in fact designated.
Okay, well, that helps. It's just, it's a bit of a, challenge for me, just the way I sort of think in terms of just designation. When I go off of like whether things are National Register eligible, or whether certain properties are entered into the National Register, it's a very different kind of an approach. I don't disagree with that approach, and I see what you're saying, John, and I agree. I just wanted to get that clarification, because this is sort of an atypical, at least in my view, it's an atypical way to approach a designation.
I think,
but that helps. That helps.
I think if they were to come before us and say their vinyl windows fell apart,
We wouldn't be surprised, for starters.
no, I think we would encourage them to maybe upgrade at least to an Anderson window or something else that might have a little more longevity to it. I think we would probably encourage that. But yes, we're not, I don't think we're going to say, okay, you have to go out and put 1920 appropriate windows in the house.
Okay.
So
Okay.
You
that
know
helps.
But Wayne, I want to say two things here. One is that certainly, I don't think any board members should feel like they have to march in lockstep with everybody else. And if you have a different take on whether this property should or should not be designated, that's perfectly fine. And you should feel free to express that opinion and vote in accordance with that opinion. The
Sure,
second thing
no,
I'll say
I
is,
think, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Ken.
but the second thing I wanted to say is, where my mind goes, and maybe I'm just overcomplicating this, is the more difficult issue for me is not if they come in and ask to replace their vinyl windows. The more difficult issue is you designate a property solely on its social value, its historic social value. And the property owners now or in the future make architectural restoration changes, restoring its architectural historic character. And then sometime later, somebody comes along and wants to put vinyl windows in. But the board never designated the property based on its architectural features in the first place. So how do you then justify denying the certificate of appropriateness when the board never designated the property because of architectural features in the first place? I think that's a few steps down and removed from what you were saying, but I do see exactly the complications and difficulty that you speak of.
No, that's exactly what I'm getting at. I mean, if you designate a property and you designate it, as we would certainly do, in sort of an as-is condition, that as-is condition is heavily modified. So I just wanted to get a sense of how the commission felt, it would handle, requests.
So Wayne,
It is based on-
we have a property now that I've had a moment to think about it, that is that, and it's the 12 corners.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
It's-
good example. Yeah.
It's a great example. The second one that's not as good is the Malik's Bakery,
Uh-huh.
which we had a lot of hassle with, and it leaned heavily on social
Okay.
history, but the 12 corners is entirely, because it's totally the whole, other than the fact that it's a building on that corner with, parking along along the perimeter of
Right.
it. It's had 2 facelifts since,
Yeah.
and we actually participated in the second one. So we do have a little bit of experience with this.
Okay. Well, thanks. I appreciate the explanations from both of you.
Yes, it's had more facelifts and Dolly Parton. Now, do we need a motion to proceed with the designation of Verena Drive with an amended report as Ken brought up?
Yes. I think we do.
Ken?
Yeah, I think the motion could simply be stated this way, that the board would direct the secretary of the commission to send a letter to initiate the designation process for 42 Verena Drive after the commission receives a modified report from Chris Brandt relative to the sentence that refers to the Tollivers as, quote, the first, end quote, Black homeowners in the town of Brighton.
Okay. May I have someone put forth the motion, please?
I would, this is Wayne. I'd put forth that motion.
Thank you, Wayne. Second, please.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Diana. Jeff, would you call the roll, please?
Yes. Ludwig,
Yes.
Robinson,
Yes,
Delvecchio,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
Whitaker,
yes,
Page.
Yes.
Motion has been approved.
Thank you. Any other old business?
There's nothing else on there.
Okay. May I have a motion to, I don't think there's any presentations nor announcements. So may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
so
I
moved.
move.
I have a quick announcement though, before we adjourn, before you take that vote.
You're behind the motion.
Yes, I am. Point of order,
Go ahead, Ken.
point of information, actually. Technically, it's a point of information. Thank you, Chair Ludwig. The governor has extended virtual meetings through the 15th of April. Our next meeting is after the 15th of April. I am trying to sort out whether the virtual meeting situation is apt to be extended. Unfortunately, I have no good information, and primarily because of this nasty thing now creeping around the globe called BA2. So we're going to need to see how things play out. But there is a possibility, more than there has been in the past, that we will be seeing each other live and in person at the April Historic Preservation Commission meeting. And I will do my best to get word to all of you, or at least to Jeff, so he can get word to all of you as quickly as I can. But the last thing I'll say is the governor has been very last minute about notifications, and we may not get any information from her until the 15th of April. So stay tuned. Thank
Well,
you
thank
for letting me interrupt.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
So where
Understood.
were we? We had a motion to adjourn. We had a second, I think.
Yeah,
Who's,
All in
I
favor?
did.
Thank you, David.
Aye.
All in favor of adjournment?
Bye.
Aye.
Aye.
all
Meeting
right,
stands adjourned. Thank you all very much.
thank you.
See you next month, if not before.
Go,
Next
go
month.
Purdue.
Rhoda, thank you. Thank you, Rhoda, Jeff, Ken,
See you
everyone.
guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you
See you
all.
next month.
Bye-bye.
Here.